Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me here today. Today I'd like to share a little bit about what it means to be pure in heart. Some of you guys have read in the Beatitudes, the pure in heart will see God, right? So this is something I'd like to discuss, but before we get into that, I'd like to share a bit of a story about when I was about 13 years old, my oldest brother got engaged and he was about to get married. And I remember thinking as a 13-year-old, I was actually in the back seat of the car driving to a prayer meeting with my parents somewhere. And I remember asking them, this just popping out of my mouth, going, how can these two people who aren't Christians, so my older brothers, neither of them are Christians, how can my older brother and his fiance, how can they actually truly understand love if they're not Christians, right? How can they get into this marriage and say that they love each other when they don't actually understand and haven't experienced God's love for them? How can anyone who's not a Christian go into a marriage and fully understand what love is? And now, more than a decade later, I have seen what's happened in my brother's marriage, and he's now separated, and it's been very sad to watch the marriage sort of slowly crumble apart over the years. But I guess the intuition that I had as a 13-year-old of this doesn't make sense. These two people don't have God's love in their hearts. How can they say that they love each other? How can that last? I guess that intuition was right in a sense. Now, there are people out there in the world who are not Christian and have managed to live their whole lives married to a single person and somehow made it work. However, there is actually data out there to show quite clearly that people who are Christians, who are committed Christians, who have a real experience with God, when they are married, they actually have another level of depth in their relationships that people who aren't Christians, they don't have that. There's this quality of spiritual intimacy and connectedness that these two people have when they do have Jesus living in their hearts, compared to people who are either secular or have a different religious background or whatever. There is that they are lacking that quality in their relationship, and they can't actually go quite as deep together in their emotional intimacy without Christ in their hearts. So it is definitely an advantage to have a committed Christian relationship, a committed Christian marriage. That's absolutely really, really important. Having Jesus in our hearts helps us to understand what true other-centered love is all about, and so we can actually experience that with another person. Now, this might not sound like it's immediately connected to this idea of purity and being pure in heart. So let's have a look at what that means and what that is all about. So being pure in heart. There are a couple of verses. There's actually a handful of verses. I have only picked 2 for today, unless we get a bonus. I'm not sure. We'll see. I've only picked 2 today, and the first one that I've been reading through recently is 1 Peter chapter 1 verse 22. So let's quickly jump there. And it says, "Since you have purified your souls in obeying the truth through the Spirit, in sincere love of the brethren, love one another fervently with a pure heart." Now, when I read this, I noticed a bit of a pattern going on in this verse. It talks about purity and it talks about loving the brethren, loving others, right? Fervently with a pure heart. There's this connection. It's repeated. And when there is something repeated in scripture, it's often a really good idea to pay attention to it. So let's break down this verse a little bit more. "Since you have purified your souls in obeying the truth through the Spirit, in sincere love of the brethren, love one another fervently with a pure heart." It's kind of like an if-then type of statement. Since you have purified your souls, since your personhood, your personality, your humanity, who you are, since you are being purified, or you have purified your souls in obeying the truth. So this is how you've purified your souls, by obeying the truth through the Spirit, remembering that being obedient and living according to the law of God, which is this truth, needs to be done through the Holy Spirit working in us to sanctify us. We cannot do it in our own strength, right? Since our hearts, let's say, have been purified in obeying the truth, so obeying the law of God with the help of the Holy Spirit, in sincere love of the brethren, then, it doesn't say then, but essentially it's saying, then love one another fervently with a pure heart. It's telling us, since you have been purified, since you're going through this sanctification process, then love other people fervently with a pure heart. Now, what does this word pure mean? I actually had a look at it, and the Greek word that is used, which I can't bring to mind at the top of my head, I should have jotted it down, but this word pure has a few different connotations. Now, it can mean unmixed, so like pure water that's not mixed with cordial or whatever else. It's not mixed, it's one simple substance. Or it can mean purified in the sense of pruning or cleansing with fire, a variety of different things like that. But we're going to just look at this idea of being unmixed. Now, what would it be referring to about being mixed, or unmixed about? It's saying, since you have purified your souls, since your souls have become unmixed, let's put it that way, in obeying the truth. So it's referring to truth here now. It's referring to God's law. It's referring to God's way of the universe that he's set in motion. Since you have become unmixed in your souls in obeying God's law, through the Spirit, in sincere love of the brethren, love one another fervently with a pure heart. Do it in a way that is unmixed with the ways of the world, right? It can be very, very difficult, and I personally struggle with this. I find it very difficult to keep my mind pure, to keep my mind unmixed with the things of the world. I personally find it very difficult because I like to be on my phone and just scroll through YouTube stories or whatever they're shorts, basically TikTok videos on YouTube or whatever. Now, I like to try to find the more intellectual, educational stuff, but it doesn't always work that way. The algorithm spits out anything it wants to, and often the things that pass in front of my eyes have some kind of sexual innuendo. It might be a stand-up comedian and they're saying something and it sounds like it's going in an okay direction, and right at the end, the punchline, it's not great, right? Or it could be any bunch of different things. It could be like you could be having a conversation with your friends and there might be something impure in that conversation that kind of just slips out randomly, and it's not really intended, but either yourself or somebody else is not having a very sanctified day, and things can go a little off the tracks. And just going to the shops, honestly, there's so much advertising that it just plays on our lower ways of interacting with the world, just like appealing to lust, for example, or appealing to pride or vanity, or any sort of one of these just temptations that we have in our life that drags our mind away or creeps into our mind and takes us slowly or quickly away from thoughts about God, or pure thoughts, or pure actions, or whatever it might be. It might be idols that we have in our life, things that we think about more than we invite God into our life. It might be ambition for the future. It might be, honestly, otherwise holy desires that God has given us that we put on a pedestal above God, right? There are so many ways that our minds can become mixed with the things of the world, and that take our mind away from God, that bring this idolatry into our lives, or any kind of thing that takes us out of that close connection with Jesus. Now, this is saying be purified. It's saying since you've been purified, since your souls are being purified in obeying the truth through the Spirit in sincere love of the brethren, then love one another fervently with a pure heart. It's saying now that you're a Christian and you're going on this process, you'll be able to see that you are going through the sanctification process by the type of love that you give to other people around you, by that other centeredness that you are pouring out onto other people. Is it pure and is it fervent? Is that love mixed with some sense of what can I get back from this person? Is it mixed with selfishness and transaction, like if I do this for you, then you have to do something for me? Or is it really pure and other centered? Is it really like behaving with the character of Christ, you know, his complete humility in coming down into human form and dying on the cross for us to set us free, to bring us back into a relationship with the Father? Is that the type of love that you are giving to other people? Is that the kind of attitude that you bring when you interact with other people? Is that pure love? Is it fervent love? Is it like you want to do this so much and you are going to find a way to show this type of other-centered love to this other person? And are you showing love just to the people that can give it back to you, or are you giving it to the people who cannot interact in a transaction of love with you? Because if you're only giving love to the people who you expect it back from your friends, from your significant other, from your family, and you are neglecting to show love to the people around you who cannot afford to give it back to you, who just don't have that capability right now. They might be going through mental health crisis. They might be just completely just unable for whatever reason to share love back with you. Are you loving those people? Are you showing them God's grace by the type of love that you give freely and willingly? Now, when we go to Matthew chapter 5, verse 8, it talks, well, that first couple of verses, the first, let's say, 11 verses of chapter 5 is what we call the Beatitudes. This is the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. And the sixth beatitude that Jesus says, as he introduces a whole couple of chapters worth of sayings and ideas that he's introducing to these people for the first time, the thing that he says there, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Okay, so saying blessed are those people who have an unmixed heart, who are completely 100% focused on Jesus and serving God and showing love to God, because they will see God, right? Their hearts are pure, they are single, they are purified, they are not mixed with anything of the world. Those people will see God. Now, what does it mean to see God? Seeing God is quite a big idea to unpack, but very simply, as much as possible, when we see God, let's think about Moses. Now, I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it might be Exodus chapter 33 or somewhere around there. Moses asks God to show him himself. And God says, look, I'm going to shove you in the crack of this big rock over here, and then I'll pass my glory before you. And so what happens is God puts Moses in this little crack in a rock so he can just kind of see out a sliver, and God's like, all right, I'm going to pass my glory before you. And what he actually does is he announces his character. He says, oh, I need to look it up. All right, you guys are getting a bonus verse. This was not the plan, but let's get a bonus verse up in here today. Exodus, let's have a look. It's chapter 33. I was right, there we go. Chapter 33, verse 18 and 19. It says, and he said, please show me your glory. This is Moses asking. Then God said, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you. And he says, I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. That is the glory of God. That is the character of God. When God says, I will pass my goodness before you, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I'll proclaim the name of the Lord before you, he says that I'll be gracious on whom I choose to be gracious, and I will have compassion on whom I choose to have compassion. That is what it means to see God, right? This is an example of seeing God. So the pure in heart will see God, will see the character and the goodness of God, will experience the grace of God on their lives, will experience the compassion of God that he chooses to give. And he says that he doesn't want anyone to perish. He wants everyone to experience eternal and everlasting life in heaven, right? This is God's heart towards us. So the people who are pure in heart, who commit themselves to living righteously and in accordance with God's law and the way that he has set up for this universe to run, and to live in this close, intimate relationship with God, they will experience this grace and this compassion in their lives from God. So that's what I really want to share with you guys today. This is what it means to really, truly love. It's to experience God. It's to experience his characters, to experience his goodness, and to share that with others. Because when we see God, when we are close to God, we take on his character, right? That's the whole point of this relationship with God, is to become more and more like him. And we will be able to know that we are Christians by the love that we have for the other people around us. That's another bonus verse that I can't remember its actual reference off the top of my head. But that's what this is all about. It's about showing God's love to others. Is there a person in your life that you think that you love, but really you're just wanting stuff from them? Or are you seeing that the way that you are showing love to the people around you, they can't give it back to you? You are doing this because you really want the best for them, and you are not thinking about yourself receiving something in return. That's something I really want you to think about. Maybe pause after this video, just stop the video, stop YouTube, just pause, sit on your bed or your couch or wherever you are, grab out a journal and start writing and start asking yourself these questions. Like, am I really wanting something back from other people, or am I really wanting to share God's love with others and just let it flow out of me? Okay? That's my encouragement for you guys. I really hope that this has helped you. Please let me know in the comments below if something stood out to you, and please share this video with a friend or with somebody that you think might enjoy it or need it. Yeah, thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell. It really helps me out with getting this message out to more people, and it helps you out because then you get to see the video as soon as it comes out. So thank you so much for hanging out. I will see you guys again next Friday. Bye.